Okay. Right. As we talked about before our afternoon tea, just setting up a process from here that we're going to agree and then maybe put some dates around the steps.
Yep, that's sensible.
And what I've asked Georgia to do is let's just do it online in front of us and see what might work. I know we've managed to have any discussions with the other parties about timing and
Not specific questions.
no. Okay. Well, let's just put next step. So step one, let's just call it traffic engineering base information. So what I'm looking for is what I'm calling an agreed statement of facts. And it will be, let's just put in brackets the initials of who's involved in that. So it'll be H. Okay, you go. Here.
She's onto it.
Yep.
GC RLL.
Okay.
Do you want to be any more specific about?
Yes, we should do. Just go through the sort
Not
of.
just one, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe Harriet, if you could lead us through what you think. Or do you want me to have a first go? Yeah. Okay. So it's probably traffic counts in terms of current and projections, and the key locations we need to be aware of. That's for the traffic counts, I think. That relates to that point, Georgia. And we talked about I don't know, in terms of the DSI modelling process. And inputs and outputs. Then we have the SIDRA. Is it SIDRA modelling, which is a gap analysis? So that's a separate item. I'll back that up to a
That gap acceptance.
yes.
Yeah, which is a key.
Is it actually just the SIDRA analysis, like the gap analysis and gap acceptance are one part of the overall?
Yes. Yeah.
SIDRA.
So what I'm looking at is actually agreed tables and numbers and what the method we've used.
So, yeah, so it's probably SIDRA intersection analysis, and it's then probably input parameters or something like that. Or it could be specifically only the gap acceptance.
So in the grade statement affects the traffic counts change, and that changes the inputs, different models get rerun.
The traffic counts are looking at current and projections. So do we just need to make a note that there's some forward-looking modelling as well? Is that what you're saying, Catherine?
Yes, I want to know if the inputs change, does the outputs change? Okay.
Or we just
That's sensitivity analysis.
I think it probably should it not, if what we're dealing with is different traffic volumes can be used in the two sets of modelling.
So this is scenario.
Versus,
Well, the also different volumes, different timeframes used for modelling and different analysis.
I think I'm getting to the point of if everyone uses the same inputs, is that what you're looking for?
rerun the modelling and get
Rerun the modelling.
one set of results.
So in same time frame, same scenario, the scenarios you're using.
Yeah. So you're comparing apples and apples.
Yes. Yes.
so rather than it's a little bit different to usual. You know, usually you're stating your position and then explaining why you have differences, whereas what sounds like we're more trying to get to a point where we would agree on some of the parameters, maybe read some bit elements get redone, and
Yes.
then there's an opportunity to agree on the outcomes of.
I'm not really looking, because I think we've got enough information about what the different opinions are. So it's really just what are the key numbers and the both current,
So there shouldn't be any other working with those numbers, it's just what the
Well-
numbers are.
well,
Sorry,
I've been involved in traffic engineers before and just trying to, one of the classic conferencing processes is see what agreement you can have on what it all means, but I'm not sure whether we're gonna,
No, with this, my concern is that there have already been multiple meetings between our
Yes.
traffic experts and one of our Tahi's
Yes.
traffic experts, sort of go through this process.
yes,
And there hasn't been agreement, and so I'm just concerned about
No,
this
no.
resulting in a re-litigation. So if it's such understanding what the purpose is, so I think
yes,
there is a huge amount of information that you're trying to sift through and understand
Yes.
what are the
Yes.
pertinent aspects, and
Yes.
isn't it really just trying to draw from the material that's already been produced, what those key parameters are, and making sure that there's, on the DSI, for example, apples with apples
No.
assessments.
that's right, because there's different timeframes being used and we're trying to multiply and, so look, I prefer to leave it there and perhaps, perhaps evolve this with some emails back and forth between the traffic engineers. I think you know what we need. I don't, for example, I'm not really interested in percentages for percentage sake when the percentage isn't the right metric for us to be looking at, because if you have a 0.001 and you go to 0.002, it's 100% increase, but I want to understand what we're looking at.
It's helpful for you to understand where the gaps are, where the difference in opinion is between the experts that were available to you through conference. And so, for example, do the experts agree in the growth metric stakeholder?
Oh,
yeah,
look, this is an agreed statement of facts. I don't want any, like, we're dealing with models, we're dealing with measurements. The traffic engineers all seem to use the same methods. I want the same timeframes used to give us the best sort of factual statement. I'm certainly not interested in trying to get, let's use 40 years, let's use 20 years, let's use this number, let's use that number. It's just not fair on us as for factual matters to be presented that in that sort of way.
At a table two with a discounted
Yes.
Yeah.
figure,
Mm.
and Waka Kotahi's experts had increased.
Yes.
So that's the kind of thing possibly that Mr. Mand is talking about now.
Yes.
And
If there's a range of different.
yeah,
Yes.
that maybe the start point was the same, but one traffic engineer considers it should be reduced and one considers it should be increased. And
Yes, one's 2% increase, one's 2% decrease, which is
Yeah.
the 4% differential.
yeah, so
Mm.
just if that's possibly the kind of difference in figures that Mr. Mand was referring to there.
Mark, can you give us your opinion, and Glenn?
Each of us got, a package of traffic data around, count information, rides, rates,
Yeah.
the generation
Yeah.
rates, and so on, and we've got different views and interpretations on each of those.
Mm.
So I guess kind of stepping back, I'm not sure that we're going to get to a fully agreed position on all these things. Make written statements about each of these matters. And then I'm thinking, how does that then inform decision making and the relevance of that information to matters of control and matters of provisions and so on?
It doesn't have. We're looking at the scale of the effect, and we've got to make this key decision because we've got one set of traffic engineers saying effects are low now, they're going to be low with this development, don't need a roundabout. Another set saying they're actually low now maybe, but they're going to get very high and we're going to get to a problem that we need to get into a transformation process. before this could even possibly be considered. So what I'm trying to do is on the core numbers and the numbers that modelling spit out on a reasonable scenario basis, what are those numbers? And if you can't agree those reasonable scenarios, you need to come back and talk to me about that, and more issues and more instructions.
Yeah, I expect that we some of these parameters.
Yes. Okay, well, I think that would even be useful. I don't know whether you've ever been asked to produce a statement of facts by a judge as a group of experts. Have you been involved in that at all? I certainly have.
Statements.
Yes.
Probably as part of that.
Yes.
Over
Agreed.
statement of facts and
Yes.
kind of do a bit of everything, a bit of
Yes.
what you agree on, what you disagree on.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Well, the most useful thing for us will be to have the agreed statement of facts, any differences and why the facts are different. And then anything you can agree and anything you can't agree and the reasons. That would be helpful. Because we've actually got all that through your evidence, but because all the numbers you're using, the timeframes are different, I'm just fearful we're going to make a mistake.
So it seems that it's important to you that where there is disagreement, that the experts set out their own opinion of the numbers.
Yes.
And the numbers are expressed in the same terms.
Same terms and timeframes.
And a classic example was the DSI over what period?
Yeah.
That was confusing yesterday.
Okay. So I think, Harriet, could I ask you to coordinate this, please, as in terms of the council role? And I think it's probably best if you came back with perhaps a brief that you've developed from these notes and then circulate that around the others and then come back to me and then I can put that into a minute. Come back to the timeframes for this. Okay, so step 2, let's talk about the planners. What are you going to call this, David?
Assessment, well, it's a section 32 assessment of the effectiveness and efficiency of different activity statuses.
Okay.
So what in the tabular form?
Completely up to you, but visually it's always useful to have that.
So the 3 scenarios.
I think the 3 scenarios have to be controlled, RDA and DA.
Controlled RDA plus structure plan.
Yes.
Chip in if
I'm just trying to make sure that the planners are certain of what that actually means, given that we have
an outline development plan.
Yeah.
Yes.
What it seemed from Ms. Vanderman's evidence earlier that additional points were showing the upgrade to the roundabout, to the roundabout
Yes.
was the key thing that was missing, which is clearly a matter that's in dispute between. So I'm just not sure of where that might sit.
Yeah, I must admit, I was a little bit confused initially when I heard the term structure plan. Reading between the lines, I thought it was a plan for intervention related to staging. That's how I read it on its face value, as opposed to a structure plan in the traditional sense of showing red, blue, green elements. I mean, roading, stormwater, open space. Sometimes it's called an outline development plan. So I'm not too sure where the structure plan fits into that Section 32 assessment. I guess in a broader sense, it's if it's needed, which activity status best suits it.
And I wonder then whether that consideration of the structure plan is a separate consideration to the activity status one.
Okay. Yeah.
That just
Yes.
might help clarify
Yes,
things for
yes.
the.
It might be, and part of that might be some statement of agreement on what it might contain.
Or even, let's say, off structure plan, really what I'm interested in is, outline development plan, structure plan techniques that might be applicable. Because everyone's got their own experience.
The only other consideration as far as those scenarios, I wonder whether it's controlled, RDA not notified, RDA and discretionary, and whether that it became 4 in that one.
Yes, it's introduced. We were discussing this over the lunch, German, and we wondered whether one of the options or whether sub options might consider whether there was any benefit in having express rule for Waka Kotahi's involvement, in order to give certainty of process to both parties, that those that are involved would be limited to this, but you knew that you would be involved.
Yeah.
Rather than having it
Okay, Georgia, can you go back to the list? Sorry, don't write that down. Go back to the list, take out plus structure plan.
Yes.
Got RDA. So RDA, so you could have non-notified.
Non-notified or non-notified with, non-notified or with a.
Yes,
Yes.
but you wouldn't, what would be the benefit of an RDA non-notified against controlled? Like it's effectively, it's a two.
The only benefit would be that it could be
declined. Okay.
Just time with potential changes to the roading environment. Could it be Waka Kotahi and Masterton District Council to cover both road controlling authorities?
Your Masterton will be the consent authority.
It's not the same as getting their roading team's approval.
Oh,
It's
okay.
because of that, what Catherine said about if you end up with an urban speed limit, then the council.
I don't think that's necessary.
You don't think it's.
No, certainly council has the scope to draw on internal advice in that sense. I've never seen it before.
Okay, can we just settle on this RDA non-notified and then RDA or with Waka Kotahi notification rule? Yeah. You happy with that?
Yes.
Yes. And look, I'm very happy for differences of opinion to come through. Like I think there should be a analysis by the three planners on these same scenarios. It'd be good to have a chat about that and see if there's some agreement. But again, this sort of process is, it's a professional process, thinking through your own experience and what's going to suit best with that section 32 test. Megan, I'm going to ask you to coordinate this just in terms of a process. Okay, step 3 is a section 42A addendum. So this will be prepared after the 2 joint witness statements. And it would give us advice from the council team on their position of evidence at the hearing, joint witness statements, and whether there's any change of recommendation or not, and any other sort of evidential matters you'd like to bring to our attention. Yes, yes, yes.
But update them based on the latest information, because we could have heard you this afternoon, but it really, unless you were in a position to provide an updated headline news summary, it would just be going over old ground based on your 42A.
That's right.
Sorry to jump back, but as far as the planner's task, the other matter that got raised today was as far as the breadth of the matters of control / matters of discretion. For Ms. Sanamand, I guess in particular, to look at whether there are any additional matters to be included.
Okay.
Yes.
So is that qualifying what's in control?
Yes.
Yes, so let's put a note about that, Georgia, so,
You might want to tackle that first because that might have a bearing on your selection of the preferred option from a 32 perspective. That is a separate step.
And adding any
Yeah.
measures of discretion
Yes.
that you would
Hey.
suggest.
either by agreement or if there's difference of opinion, let's
Yeah.
get them on the table.
In the 60-32.
Yes.
Yes. You got that, Georgia, enough to write down? Oh, no, it's part of step 3. No, it is step 2. And there's a,
Bullet point.
here,
Yes.
No, they've probably.
discuss and agree if possible the matters of control, matters of discretion that would apply to control an RDA.
Implicitly, that's going to involve some sort of philosophical consideration of the starting point for those two types of activity status. And that's the discussion I had with Saint earlier.
Yes. So just put a note, we don't need, if there's, you're going to come down to sub scenarios if there's differences of what goes in and out, but I think you're professional, experienced enough to work something out. There's a key element that's one plan I think should be in and one thing should be out. Let's just have that on the front end. Yes. Okay, and step 4 is the full right reply for the requester. I see that covering both legal and final sort of evidential points you'd like to bring us to the table, and just in the way we would if it was a council-led process, the council would have the final right of reply. I think that's the fair process. Does anyone disagree?
So I just wonder if there was going to be evidence at the full right of apply and acknowledging. I agree there this should go on.
It won't be evidence, it will be their position that they want to leave us with.
Oh, sorry.
So, yeah, I use the word evidence, but sort of expert input.
So just legal.
No, when you need a reply from a council team, it's their plan change or their plan, they'll go through all of the evidence and they'll give us their opinion on what their recommendation to us is, because remember, this is a private plan change, the requester has that final say.
But it won't be that introduction.
That's precisely right.
No.
Normal right of reply rules.
Yes. No, yes, it's not rebuttal evidence. It's right of reply, whatever's been produced, like Catherine, you introduced some new information today that the request hasn't seen, so that's fair game to make comment on. No, that step 5 isn't there. So the council doesn't have the one right of reply in this case. The requester does.
And so just to be clear, it's not that there's no new evidence, no rebuttal. It's because there will necessarily be potentially some rebuttal to the extent that there's matters that have emerged since we presented our case.
Yes, as a council policy planner would do. Yes. So for those that you have been in council processes, the last thing we see is the right of reply from the proposer, which in a council process is the council team. In this case, it's the requester's team.
It's that no new material will be introduced in that right of
No,
reply.
yes.
The
Yes.
position on what has been seen.
No new material. Final evidential position, just say final position. Take the word evidential out just to solve any problems. And certainly, I would encourage the requesters to give this your best shot. Obviously, you put a lot of money into this. You've got a site, it's got legs, and just do your very best to to sort of work through all the options and ways you might get there. So timing, let's have a start at the top. We do have, I'll preface this, we do have an obligation to be efficient with this process. The difficulty with these processes is we've all got very busy diaries. Trying to coordinate things is difficult. But I'm thinking in the 2-week time frame for steps 1 and 2 that can happen. They can happen in parallel. Certainly they're not sequential at all. But does that feel reasonable? Everyone will be looking at their diaries.
It's fine.
Okay.
Yes, I think, yeah, yes. Okay, so shall we say 2 weeks from today?
20.
The only point is, I think was council going to circulate these points to the parties, and then we were going to report and you were going to issue a minute. And then would these processes start?
When would you like to issue the minutes?
There's still a bit of work to do on the traffic engineering aspect, isn't there?
What I was understanding was that I was going to develop, sort of refine the list that's there, discuss it circulate it to the others,
Yes,
and then come back to you and say,
yes,
this is what we're suggesting that we include,
yes.
and then you were going to
Issue a minute.
confirm that through a minute. And
Yes.
then we get on with this and
Yes,
have
yes.
those discussions.
So look, that's going to take 2 or 3 days at least.
To say that, I'm thinking to do the minute on Wednesday, say that, it puts pressure on us, but we just have to do it.
Is that possible for the traffic engineers by the end of Wednesday to have a basically a framework to report back on what you're going to put together?
Circulate to your list today.
Okay.
It's really just scoping the discussion, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Well, including that, is it reasonable to still have something back by the 24th? That's 2 weeks from today. Is that right?
2 weeks from Wednesday.
2 weeks from Wednesday? Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just in case. Engineers and
Oh, yes.
I think that a point of efficiency is the round and round. If we realise because of that, this thing is to say a recent statement of facts, it's going to be a statement of facts.
Yeah.
And some of those matters that agree,
Yeah.
and other matters.
Some of us will be more active in parts of it than others.
Okay. Well, let's take the agreed out. Let's call it a statement of facts. So with the 10th today, the 15th of March is Wednesday. And 2 weeks from then is the 29th of March. For delivery of the 2 witness statements.
From my perspective, I'm happy to do it as soon as possible.
Yes.
I don't know, obviously you've not got anything to or Richard. So I'll come back.
You come back to us with a time frame. It's better to do that. Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay, let's do that. And for the same, availability, what's the gut feel? You're all in the room here. Yep.
All that would be ideal.
Out of my diary. Yeah, it is.
24th,
24.
and I think we've pretty well settled on the content, so I can just repeat that in the minute.
Yes.
Do that. By end of Friday, 24th. Okay, right, let's go to step 3. You've pretty well put a lot of this work together under pressure, haven't you, Megan? So is it a few days after that that you could? I think what you, yeah, well, the 29th is a worst case.
We have a week from the 29th.
Which is the 5th of April.
I'd just like to have the opportunity to make sure that all 4 council experts have the chance to work on this together once we get those input.
Can I just clarify that step 3 includes the from me?
Yes. And there are some, we've asked you to look at some of those cases too, so let's just add in there, including legal submissions summary. And we're saying that's the 5th of April date. Now, this is where we've got to think about fair process. We will want to have a discussion with the council team before you do your right of reply. And we're going to need to do that by a Teams meeting. I'm thinking we might need a couple of hours where we've got the addendum, let's call it, and we'll have questions of these witnesses, the same as questions of other people. So we do need to actually have that schedule before you do your full right of reply, Daniel, with your team.
Yes,
You know, this is switching out a bit, but I think it's worth doing.
I absolutely understand that.
Yes. So probably call it step 4. Georgia, thanks. So this is, no, I think everyone would be involved. Yes. Anyone that wants to come, this will be part of our hearing. And this would be a reconvened hearing on Teams to question council addendum position. And look, I think we're just going to have to go away and look at our diaries and come back in the minute. But ASAP after we receive it, acknowledging that Mr. McMahon's in the hearings for the next 2 years, next 2 months.
Well, one option is if it could be from the date from the 17th, and then at the same time as the council is questioned, we can also present our closing.
Together, yeah, no, you could.
And that then
Brings it together.
Delayed. And so there'll be, I guess, to the extent that there are matters raised in the council's addendum, we will still have the opportunity to see that. It'll only be any matters arising from questioning that I can just address orally.
We have a difficulty that David and I are hearing the Hutt City's IPI plan change 56.
Commencing right after Easter.
Yes. So
running through to
the 28th. But we do need to have this step because otherwise it's just not a.
Well, could we have the two expert statements, both on the 24th, the council's reply on the 31st, and then in that week for Easter. third of April.
David,
Time
you-
later that way.
Sorry, I can't.
Okay.
It's week 2 of the hearing that Mr. Lewandowski just referred to. And that's scheduled to go through until the 11th, so just the day after Easter.
Third and the 11th.
Yeah, well, yes, we were hoping 11th was a reserve day, but it looks like we're going to need it.
Okay, you're supposed to be in New Plymouth that day as well.
I've
I'll not be able to.
given my apologies.
Okay,
Yeah.
me?
Yes,
Okay, yeah, okay, right, look, it's late on a Friday, I think we're gonna have to compare some possible dates. I'm very conscious of the timeframes for the requester.
We might have, it sounds like we must need to work backwards, so you find the date when that,
He's already,
when you question us and the right of reply can be put in and then.
he's already given us a date and it's sort of late April.
well, the 24th is a date that would work.
March.
Yeah,
April,
March.
oh, 24th of March.
Oh. we
No.
can't. We did all the things for them. Open.
So the reality availability for the panel, what's the first day, David?
Is May. The first.
Sorry, but just going back to the 24th of March is available.
Yes.
And so I guess just testing as far as the amount of time required for those steps 1 and 2. Because on step 1, the traffic engineering, all the assessment has been undertaken. It is more just consolidating the key parameters and explaining the points of difference and making sure that it's an apples with apples on a page. I don't see it being like a normal big expert conferencing process required because we've already had all the evidence. It's actually just to
It's a
assist you.
it's a synthesis of the information.
And so I would have hoped that that is something that within a week should absolutely be able to be achieved. And then equally, if you apply enough pressure, I'm sure the planners could also deliver their assessment.
I disagree with that, it's too short a time frame. In this step 3 as well.
What extent can you make a start on step 3 from next week? I mean, you don't need a minute to do step 3, do you? You don't have to receive the minute to do the non-transportation component of step 3.
It, just that we will have other commitments that we're planning on this being finished today, and there's been a lot of working through weekends and late nights and early mornings.
Yes.
I personally can't push another week of that right now to make it happen in a week.
I'm not suggesting we're to make it happen in a week. We'd need to have it happen within a week and a half, presumably.
But step 3 depends. Step 2,
Yes.
for us to be able to
It-
prepare a fulsome.
For transportation matters and, well, and some of the planning matters other than what Megan would be involved in terms of the Section 32 conferencing. Yes.
So they've both been compressed into one basis. I'm not sure I can make that work.
Okay. Yeah, the other possibility is we know, David and I know that sitting on these big hearings, there are sometimes you have a half day. That's just, there's nothing to do, but it's a question of getting fair notice out to people. So what I suggest that we do is we aim to have everything together for us by, say, including we go down to step 4. So you're suggesting, Daniel, that we have step 3 and step 5 information brought together to be brought together at a final hearing, half-day hearing or something?
That's what, as a possibility, if
Yes.
if you're wishing to hear and question the
Yes.
council, it makes sense to also have the right of reply presented at the same time.
Yes. Okay, well, let's set a date of 14th of April to have everything together in terms of inputs. And then between now and then, we'll have some detailed timetables done for our HUT process, and there could well be a day or two in there that's spare.
Certainly.
So we'll keep communications through the council team, and maybe we should have that timetable organised, late March.
At least you and I have got some control over that.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. So what we might even be able to do is, because I'm chairing the Hutt City one, we might be able to say to Hutt City, give us the afternoon of the 17th of April off, and don't schedule anything that afternoon, and then we can do this. So that's entirely under my control. So there's probably a date in mid-April that we can, for half a day hearing, we can make available, I think, David.
Yes, and on the basis that everything's potentially in play by the
14th.
yes. Okay, Friday the 14th.
How does that sound?
That sounds fine, but needs to one extra point, maybe I should have raised this earlier, it's just a minor one. You asked Mr. Connolly about roundabout costings.
Yes.
Just wondered how that fit in a week or two.
Yes, well, I think that could perhaps be a little addendum to your joint witness statement. Because I think, the team's probably got the wider group experience there. So, some sort of range of what might be possible, what might be effective, and what might be a cost range. So just add that, okay. Yes, yes. Excellent. All right. Done by committee, and we've got there. Any other final comments before I adjourn the hearing? What's that? Oh, it's look, to be honest, this has been a really, really good hearing. Excellent witnesses, good information, good spirit, and I know it's a contested hearing, so I really like to thank everyone for their efforts. Certainly Georgia for your efforts helping us out. Yeah. Were you typing everything? Okay. And certainly to the support teams, everyone I know, but in terms of Jacob and Samantha and everyone else, I'd like to thank you very much. And to the requester, we'll get through this as quickly as we possibly can and get you a decision within the best time frame we can achieve. Thank you very much. I will adjourn this hearing until further notice. Thank you.
Thanks.